Alright, Photography 1-2, I'm going to do a product demo. So I'm going to be retouching the photo I took of my phone in Adobe Bridge. So if you haven't used it yet, open up Adobe Bridge. You can always go to Go on your desktop and go to Applications, and you should find Adobe Bridge and Adobe Photoshop in there. So I'm just going to right click or press Control and click on the photo. I'm going to choose the duplicate option. On the copied version, I'm going to right click on that, and actually I'll open it straight into Photoshop. So I'm just going to double click on it and it should open directly into Photoshop. So first thing I always recommend is to crop your photo. For a product photo, you always want to make sure you have it nice and centered. And so basically what I want to do is get it nice and centered in my frame. So if I hold down Shift, it should keep the same ratio. And then what I want to think about is just getting the top and bottom to have the same amount of space, and then the left and right have the same amount of space. So I'm just gonna do this and this, and that looks pretty good. So once I'm happy with it, just hit the check or double click on it and it'll crop it. So now that I got it nice and centered, what I'm going to show you is how we can apply camera raw settings in while we're still in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do on my background layer, I'm just going to go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, and hit OK. The shortcut for that is if you press Command and J at the same time, it'll make a copy of your layer too. So what we want to do is go into our Camera Raw filter. So go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And so then what I want to do is under my sliders, there's a couple things I would want to adjust. Obviously, depending on how you shot your exposure, you might need to adjust your exposure. This one's pretty good, so I'm just going to leave that normal. And then you could adjust the contrast depending on how black or white you want the shadows, but we want to kind of fine tune it. So if we do want to go for like a white background, I'm just going to click on my whites panel and line it up. You might see a little highlight warning. And it's this option here, this little, you can turn it off and on, and it's just letting you know it's going solid white. So that's actually a good thing. So I'm just going to turn it off, and so we can see how it's going white around my product. And that will clean up a lot of the issues. For this one, I do want to see some of the texture, so I'm going to zoom in, pressing Command plus. I'm going to go turn on some of this texture here. There we go. Nice gritty texture. And then depending on your colors, you might want to add or remove colors, vibrant saturation. You could add some sharpening in the detail section as well, just to make sure your product is nice and sharp. And then once we're kind of happy with that, I'm just going to open it back into Photoshop. And so you can see the before and after. So if I turn the eye and the layer on and off, you can kind of see what it's doing on and off. So it looks pretty good. So all I'm going to do is just layer and then flatten image. So I'm going to combine those two layers together. So basically apply the camera raw layers onto my product. So as you can tell, I got quite a bit of dust on my product. So I do want to clean that up as best I can. So I'm just going to go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, hit OK. And then something what I want you guys to try to get familiar with is these tools over here. So we got the Spot Healing Brush tool. And if you're not sure which tool is which, just kind of hover over it and give you a little preview now. So first thing I'm going to show you is the Spot Healing Brush tool. Very similar to the Spot Healing tool in Camera Raw. And so this one is basically doing its best guess. You can see it's just kind of healing. I do recommend zooming in, pressing Command plus to zoom in. So sometimes it will guess right, sometimes it will guess wrong. It is guessing. It's just looking at pixels in your frame and kind of figuring out the best way to replace them. But it is a good way to kind of start getting used to the tool, is using the Spot Healing Brush tool. And so the best way it works, and if you want to adjust the size of it, you can click up here in this little arrow and adjust the size of it. Or you can press the little brackets next to the letter P and make it bigger and smaller. And you just want to make it a little bit bigger than whatever it is you're removing. If you have it too big, like if I keep it really big here and click on something, it's going to do weird stuff. So if you want to go back in your history, just make sure you go Window, and make sure your history window is checked on. So, and then I'm just going to click back on that step. So I'm just going to make my brush smaller again and then heal things. So if it starts guessing wrong and doing like weird things, what you can do is use the standard healing brush. And this is similar to what the one in Camera Raw is. So if I hold Alt or Option, I get this little target, and then if I click Alt Option and then click at the same time, I'm basically saying I want you to get healing information from this. So I'm gonna move it across, let go of Alt Option, and then just click. And so I'm just kind of helping it, choose where to heal from. So I'm gonna Alt Option click here, bring it over, and just do a normal click. And then it should do a much better job because I'm basically telling Photoshop, hey, this is where I want you to gather healing information from. And sometimes it will, again, do wrong, so it just depends on what you're doing. So if you want to directly clone something, you could use the Clone Stamp tool. Clone Stamp tool, you can adjust it from 100% flow down to like a little percent, so if you want to blend more. So I'm just going to do about like 50%. You can adjust the hardness of the edge and the size of it here. So I'm just going to Alt Option click, just like the last tool, and then let go of Alt Option, and I'm just going to click across and just kind of paint across here. Alt Option click, and then let go. I'm just going to click, and so I'm basically just doing like a 50% kind of clone across and just kind of healing this area. So I would spend more time, healing up the product. At least use the spot healing brush tool here and to clean up the major dust spots on your product. You can also look on your background and grab some of those. But again, if you did kind of white it out using that, white in camera raw, it should get rid of a decent amount of it. So then once my product looks good, I got rid of a lot of the dust. Last thing we want to do is to flatten our layers. So key step, go to Layer, Flatten Image. So Layer, Flatten Image. It's going to combine our two layers together, which is good. And then I'm just going to go File and Save. So I already made a copy, so I'm just going to save over that copy and then hit OK. So then I'm just going to close my window bridge. And so in a couple steps, right, we cropped it and centered our product. We added some texture and sharpening to make sure it's nice and sharp and the texture is good. I adjusted the whites to kind of whiten up the whites. And then we used the spot healing brush tool, clone stamp tool, and the healing brush tool in Photoshop to remove a lot of the dust on the product. So that's a good little tutorial for editing products. So thanks for watching, guys.